supplemental math videos from Circle Christian School. Today's video is how to set up your 3-ring binder and just a reminder of what your homework front page should look like.
Okay, we're going to talk about shifts, which have to do with a vertex. Let me go find origin here. Here we go, so I can draw it. I'm going to use a parabola. And as Philip says, I tend to make my parabolas a little wide. But it's all about the vertex, which is the h and the k, the wacky little cousins of x and y, that tell you where a parent function is hanging out at. The h value moves you left and right along the parabola. If it's inside any of the parentheses, square root, absolute value, then just realize that the vertex value is going to be an opposite sign. And if it's some sort of k value and it's inside any of those type of symbols, then it's going to move up and down. However, if it is not, then it's going to stay exactly what it is. Now I'm going to show you a few calculator magic items that can be used to graph certain functions and manipulate some of the data. I'm going to use number 65 as the example, the amounts of fuel, and it is modeled by the equation shown. Well, the first thing it asks is to model the data to begin with. So you're going to go to your y equals key right there, and you get that little drop down list of the various y's that you can put it into. Sorry, that's a y2. We're just going to put it into the first one and put it inside. Now the next thing that we need to have for modeling this data is having a good window with it, and fortunately they happen to show us some coordinates, some input-output values to begin with. So you just set your window, your max and your minimums, your x maxes, your x minimums. Let's see, it starts with the minimum first. You just have to set that in accordance to the data. Well, looking at the x's, you'll see that the lowest x happens to be a 1. So I always like to go a little in front and a little in back, so I would actually set that at 0. My highest x value is 17, so I think I might just go to the 20. Just kind of allows me to show the data in between. And then we have an x scale. And that's where you decide what do you want to count by. Since 0 to 20 is really not that large of an area, you can do 1 or you can do 2. I'm just going to keep it at 1 since we're talking about years and none of those are too far apart from there. The next is going to be your y values. So you got your y minimum. And again, you're going to look at your lowest one. I have 128, so I think I'll just start it at 120. And your y maximum, the largest being 176. I might go to 180 again, so I can see the stuff in between. And then my y scale, and that can be negotiable. I may actually count by 5s here and see how that works. That's going to allow us to be able to see it into the window when you press graph. And you're going to get something that looks a little bit, if I remember right, data-wise like that. Okay, so we can kind of see what's happening here. We can also use our second key and then the graph to take a look at the table. And That's not what it says. It doesn't say line 1. That's the next thing. But that's okay. Actually, it says X, and then it's going to have Y1 and Y2 and so forth. That's if you have several different things graphed inside there. And this is going to be your input. And looking at whatever is happening here in your inputs will also allow you to set a nice window. You just look at where you want to start with your X's, where you want to end with your X's, and same thing with the Y's. In your window, you just kind of look, well, that emulates the data, and put it in between there, and you can use your table to help figure out a nice window. So the next thing we're going to do is match the data up to the graph, which means we're actually going to graph a lot of the input outputs. So to do that, you're going to have to go to your stat key, and in your stat key you're going to get a drop down list, one of them being edit. So let's just go into edit. After you go into edit, you'll see several little lines, line 1, line 2 to put data in. This is basically going to be your X and your Y, input output, and you just put your data in. Since it's years, you're going to put 1 and then hit enter, 2, hit enter, 3, and so forth until you get up to the 17. Just make sure you match your Y data with it, because that's what you're going to do next. You're going to cursor over to the Y's and put the data in there. So you get the 128.6, and then you hit enter, 132.9, and 137.3, and so forth, all the way down the line. Just make sure that you match it as you go along. Okay. Now we have to set our calculator up to reflect the data that we've put in. And up above your Y equals, you'll see that there's a command for stat plot. In other words, we're going to plot all our statistics here. So you're going to hit your second key and Y equals, and the stat plot command will come up. And you can stat plot the first one, stat plot the second one. We're just going to deal with our first one here. So you cursor down to it, hit enter, so that you can go inside there. Inside there, you're going to do a little bit of setup. Okay, inside here, you're going to have, you're going to see that your calculator is scheduled to have the stats off. That's why it has the little box around it. And the on box is the one that's blinking. So you're just going to cursor over to it and then hit enter. And now it's on. All the others you don't need to change. They're pretty much already set. That you have the type to show, that you're just showing the data. It's defining that your X list is what you've put into line 1 in the stats, and Y list is what you put into line 2 for the stats. And the mark is going to have something small, big, or large. I like the big square for my mark. Very good. So now the next thing that you're going to go to is now to hit graph, because your graph's going to come up. You already have in there showing the data, and now it's going to show each one of those coordinates along the line here, and you're going to see how they match, like so. And that's how you do that by calculator.